Come on. There we go. We're going live. One lonely beastie IB. But you know what? We don't have a beastie. I'm not alone. I have RZeroB, also aka Rob, coming at you talking on to bring it back Giant Sunday. Gotta love Giant Sunday because Giant Sunday is where we talk about Giants, we talk about Sunday. We got recordings that we're talking about over here.
From StreamYard.
I probably should turn off the other parts of the YouTube. We got Zach Attack already in the room. We got Emmanuel dropping in. What's going on, Mr. Emmanuel Reese? How are we talking today? Rob, why don't you kick it off a little bit? I know a lot of people. We have a lot of crossover on people that we have. But why don't you do a little introduction for yourself, introduction for your channel, and everything that you do on Twitter and Twitter Spaces or whatever the hell it's called, and all that fun stuff.
Appreciate it, Tim. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? As Tim said, name is RZeroB or Rob. Go by either way. You guys can find me on Twitter at real_RZeroB because the actual RZeroB was taken by somebody who hasn't talked on that since like 2013. And why that account hasn't been deactivated, I don't know. But you can find me on Twitter. Do a lot of Twitter Spaces with Giants. Do it at least 3 days a week as of right now because it's the low point of the season. When the season actually is going on, we do it 5 days a week. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on YouTube. Twitch and YouTube is RZeroB, just like my name. You guys can find me on there. We do Giants. I do Giants videos. I got a little bit of gaming stuff on there, but it's mostly just the Giants stuff. And on Twitch, we do gaming. Talk about sports. Play some Fortnite. Play some Madden. But it's really a sports oriented. And then I also do a weekly podcast with my boy PTA, which we're going to be doing those on Saturday evenings. Moving those from Wednesdays to Saturdays, so you can find us there as well. So I'm happy to be on here. Happy to be the first person to help kick off the Sunday Giants talk. So it's awesome.
Sunday Giant talk return. We got ECK Sports in the room. We got LJ dropping in. We got Jeff Newman saying, "Timmy." All right. You know what, Rob? And I'm gonna call you Rob because
that's fine. We're on a first name basis.
We got Big Don already dropping in the super sticker. Big Don knows I love super stickers. And of course, all super chats go to the Philadelphia Children's Hospital. So make sure you donate like the Big Don, because the Big Don has been a big supporter of the show. We have free agency, legal tampering starting very soon. Starting in, I want to say hours, but in some ways it's hours. Joe Schoen came out in an interview last couple days ago and said that the Giants are no longer going to go after the low-hanging fruit. They're no longer going to go after that. They're going after $2.5 million a year players. I loved it because I keep seeing videos. Are the Giants going all in this year? $2.5 million player, Rob. That's not really going out and busting your nut in free agency.
No, it's not. And it's kind of a weird situation, right? Because they went ahead and they gave Daniel Jones a contract, and when you give a contract like that, you're pretty much at this point, like with this year, the way they structured it, it's a 2-year deal where they can get out of it after year 2 and move on, where in 2024 he would become like a bridge guy if for whatever reason he regressed or didn't improve, and they decided that they wanted to dip into the QB market as far as in the draft. This coming up draft, not this one, but next year's draft. So you want to try to surround your quarterback to see what he's got with some talent, right? So, I hear a lot of people talking about, trading for D-Hop or, this, that, and the third. And it's just like, no, like I'm not giving up any type of draft capital to go and get a 30-year-old wide receiver that, maybe he could still produce. I'd rather go after like an Odell Beckham where I don't have to give up any draft capital. I can give him a 3-year deal, spread that money out.
And supposedly still looking for $20 million.
I mean, you could definitely make it work, make it highly incentive based. I think that's probably
for that.
No, I mean, maybe, but I mean, he's got I think, but the thing is, I think with him, like obviously he gave DJ a heavily incentive-based contract. Barkley's probably going to get something similar. I think you could definitely swing it to Odell Beckham where he's going to make a lot of incentives. And if he's playing good, he's going to make those incentives. I don't think that there's, you can make it like they get 1,000 yards, so many touchdowns, whatever. Like, I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. So we'll see what happens.
You got a guy coming off an ACL, second ACL in about 4 years, hasn't played a full season since I was a pup. and that's a long ass time ago.
That is.
Fuck you. Rob evidently has to learn. If you disparaged him, you go into timeout. Dom learned this. Took Dom 3 years.
Damn.
Just remember, you go into timeout. You get wonka. That's wrong one.
Get nothing. You lose.
Great movie.
Good day, sir.
You get thrown out when you disparage the Tim. I don't see Odell coming here. I don't see Odell with the money. The cap doesn't make sense. You have 16 million right now. You're going to pick up 6.7 with the Kenny G contract. You have a 10.8 allotment for your rookie class, and it's only 3.5, I believe, with the rule of 51. But people seem to forget the rule of 51 disappears. So those contracts that you have an allotment for go on the books. I mean, it's not like they just it's magically gone. No, that's not how that works. I think the Giants are going to be in lower tier free agents. I know everyone's looking at Tremaine Edmonds. I know people are looking at that. ECK just had first of all, we got a win plug. Giving a big shout out to Rob, always hosting the best spaces. We have ECK talking about the linebacker. We're gonna talk about the linebacker market in a moment. ECK. Want to get to Jose G in there saying, morning. Do you think we should re-sign Love for the asking price? Love is probably looking at probably like 8 to 9 million, Rob. That's you already look like Darius Slayton's gone because I don't think they're gonna give him 3. You know what I love though? I gotta bring this up. I do love this. I keep seeing this on Twitter, and I know I should say the fuck off Twitter. I know I should stay off Twitter. I know I should stay off Twitter. I know I should stay off Twitter.
It's not good for you. It's not good for you.
Off Twitter. People want to bring back Hodges. They want to bring back Richie James. They want to bring back Sterling Shepard. They want to bring back Saquon Barkley. But then they say Daniel Jones didn't have any weapons last year. You want to bring back half the receiving core, but Daniel Jones didn't have any weapons last year.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And the majority of them, they say, well, let's go ahead and we'll draft a wide receiver. You know, we'll go draft Zay Flowers or Halen or Hyatt or whatever, Jalen Hyatt or whatever the case may be. And then what? When they're struggling, but the receiver, he has to gel with Daniel Jones. You got to give him another year. He has to develop.
There will always be a reason. But the question is Julian Love, the love child. I think it was 120 something tackles. I mean, Julian Love, to me, people seem to forget, and then they remember that 2 years ago, he got benched for an extended period of time. It didn't come back until he played slot corner. And which is fine because then he had a season last year where it was like his career year. But I think the issue was there were times where he made, like in the Eagles game, he made questionable plays. He missed assignments. He's not the most fleet of foot. He is a good strong safety, in my opinion. But is he an 8? And people talk about Dane Belton, but Dane Belton got benched this year for long periods of time. And I know they want to bring him back, but would you bring the love child? I personally like Julian Love because I've told the story a million times before. We were on the sidelines and I was with my wife and a player got hurt. A Giant player got hurt. This was preseason. And he went to the bench and Julian Love was the only player to come over and check on him. So in my house, that got 2 thumbs up from the wife. And we all know I'm afraid of the wife. So you know what? We have to love the love child. But would you bring Julian Love back for what? A, would you bring him back? B, what amount would you bring him back for?
I mean, I would be okay with bringing him back, but for the right price. I wouldn't want to give him no more than $7 million a year. I think that's more than enough. 8 is like a stretch for me. I just think like if you're gonna pay anything more than that, you could go out there and get a little bit more of a productive player. That's been consistent. You got a guy like Jordan Poyer, who he's 30 years old, but I think that he's been more consistent in his career as far as playing the position than Julian Love has. You mentioned a couple of years ago he got benched, and really, if Julian Love wasn't a part of this system, would he have had the year that he had, as far as 124 tackles with Wink Martindale? I definitely think that the system fits him. I think that it works in his favor, but I'm not going to overpay for Julian Love. And then on top of that, you have Dane Belton. You don't know what Dane Belton's going to go ahead and emerge into, but you have other guys that are on as far as in free agency that you might be able to get for just about the same price, maybe a little bit less. A guy like Donovan Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys, who's out there as far as being a free agent. I don't know what his market would be, but that's another guy that you can plays in the box, similar to what Julian did. can make good tackles. We played against them multiple times. He's great against pass defense. He's good in the box, good tackler. He comes in on blitzes. So for the right price, I don't mind it. Just I'm not paying $8 to $10 million for him. I'm not going to do that.
I can't. Yeah, I can't see that. And LJ is right. And LJ, I was just being facetious. He says, I think Joe Schoen was saying that regarding the $2.5 million players will be depth and not primary pieces like they were last year. Some of those guys are going to be primary pieces.
Yeah,
I'm not. I am always the gloom and doom. I know that, but some of those guys will be primary pieces. We got ECK Sports dropping in saying, I love Odell, but I would stay away. LJ says I would take Hopkins over OBJ. We also got a 2 from LJ. He said, that's right, Tim. Now the stream can officially start. Blair Webb drops it in and saying, he's got DJ Shark. I keep hearing that name. He had a interesting career in Jacksonville. I've said it a million times before. I'm a quasi Jacksonville Jaguar fan. I had season tickets for the Jaguars when I lived in Florida. So I follow them extensively. Some injury issues, some issues in reference to I'm not going to say personality, but just his willingness to play. He went over to Detroit last year, kind of had a bounce back season coming off the injury. Would you take a look at the Shark?
It depends on the play style. Like what Joe Schoen said, that he wants to get wide receivers that are going to, create separation. And when you look at, for me, when I look at Detroit had probably a top 3 offensive line in football last year. And Jared Goff had a lot of time to throw the football, and a lot of Shark's plays that he had with with the Lions were because Goff had a lot of time in the pocket, so he could get down the field, try to create some separation that way. I think what they're looking to try to do is guys that are going to create that separation right off the snap. Maybe a guy like DeAndre Hopkins can probably still do that, but he's more of a contested guy. He's basically another, to me, DeAndre Hopkins is like another Kenny Galladay, just takes a little bit better with his craft, probably a little bit healthier, takes care of his body a little bit more. For me, Shark, yes, would it be an okay signing? I think he's still young. He's like 25, 26 years old. So, he's a younger player, yes. But I think the way that they're going to run the offense, it doesn't make sense to me bringing him in because the offensive line is just not going to give Daniel that much time right off the rip. And that's what I think Shark needs.
All right. John wants to know, what about
King of the almost sacked?
Is there any meaningful negotiations to lower his cap number and give him extension? No. I'm going to answer that right away because of the fact that you already gave him a dead cap year in 2024. Leonard Williams, and I've said this is what concerns me about the DJ signing. Leonard Williams had 5 seasons or 4 seasons or 4.5 seasons with the Jets, made 1 Pro Bowl. He was what he was. He had a bad season that first half a season with the Giants, came in, had his monster year, got his Aaron Donald contract, and has never lived up to expectations. And this is why I mentioned when we even talk about signing Daniel Jones that if you are a lot of times what you are for the first half of your career, you don't all of a sudden have this renaissance where you reinvent yourself and become this monster of a player. No, you usually kind of revert back. Now, the problem with Daniel Jones is his ceiling was so low that if he reverts back, he's going to revert back to what he was in 2021 and 2020, which is what concerns me. And with Leonard Williams, I think they just want to get out of that contract because Shane was already pissed last year that he had to give him that voidable year just to have operational cap space for the season. I don't see them redoing Leonard's deal at all because, yes, everyone wants to talk about in 2024 we have $120 million in cap space. But I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell you this, kiddies. At one point in time, we had the 3rd most amount of cap space this year. And I said over and over again, you have that amount of money because you don't have your running back signed, you don't have your quarterback signed. So what may look like $120 million now, maybe 60, maybe 80. You don't know because you have Dexter Lawrence's contract, you have Andrew Thomas's contract, you have the maturing deals of Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. You're going to have that number for Daniel Jones is going to go up. Yep. So you have to, yeah. And I know that 120 is with the 140, the 45 for Daniel Jones, but I don't see them doing anything crazy with that Leonard deal. If Shane is sticking to his man of his words, and this is what concerns me a little bit, he's going to build through the draft, clear the cap space, and use his salary cap for his free agency to augment what he's doing in the draft. So what do you think about Mr. Williams? Anything, you think they're going to redo anything?
I I think if they were, they would have been done already, because I think they would have tried to open up more cap space for, the tampering and the free agency. I think we would have heard something probably right after DJ signed his contract this past week. So the fact that we haven't, I don't think that there is. I think me personally, if they didn't have to extend him and put the dead cap in from last year, I think it would have been done. I think they would have probably traded him, got some draft assets, or they may have just cut him. But now that his cap hit is so high, and his dead cap hit, they haven't rolled over. They're almost like basically kind of forced to kind of keep him. I look at it as like a Kenny Golladay situation. Like they won't be able to really move on from him, so I don't see them doing it unless he says, listen, I'll take a massive pay cut, and whatnot. I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Jose Giwa says, what is your thoughts on drafting the linebacker over out of Clemson, from Clemson over a wide receiver? I don't want to talk about drafts yet, because we got free agency I want to talk about, but because we can't talk about the draft until we get through free agency.
Yep.
Because that is going to dictate. I don't think that either the linebacking core or the wide receiver core is very deep in this draft after maybe the top 15, 20 players. I mean, you're always going to find that gem in the later rounds, but I just don't think that those two positions outside of the big names are overly talented in this draft. Well, Jose, we're going to talk about that after we get into the free agency. So I want to talk free agency. What does ECK say? Shepard should be good if he didn't have the knees of glass. Well, it was knees of glass, and it was the Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
So, and I've said this once before, when you tear your Achilles tendon, now a tear in your Achilles tendon is not a turf injury. I've always hated when people say this. It's not a turf injury. It's a repetitive stress injury on the tendon, which causes it to fray. Wide receivers get them a lot. Running backs get them a lot, because you're always consistently pushing off with your legs, and that's what causes the injury. But the problem is this: when you have an Achilles tendon, I will tell you this, it puts more pressure on your knees, your ACL, your MCL, your PCLs. It puts more pressures on your knees itself, which is why a lot of players after an Achilles tears their ACL. And it's just, and in some ways it's even the same, even in reverse. A lot of players that have had ACLs that will then go out and tear their Achilles as they're getting. And I always like to talk about advanced age when they get those. Yeah. 20s.
That's what they said probably caused Shepard to tear his ACL this year. Was because of the Achilles last year, the stress that it went through, and then your body was compensating for it. So then boom, he just unfortunately tore his ACL.
That's Coach Dave. Coach Dave is in the house saying, what are the expectations for Daniel Jones this season? I'm paying you $19 million. I'm paying you $45 next year. I do love it, because I was talking to Rob during the Daniel Jones negotiation. I have someone that was kind of in the know, and he said that Shane did not want to pay over 32 an average salary at the bulk of his contract, and I had to add and then divide what 19 plus 45 was, because I was like, well, that equals 32. I was like, he was right again. My expectation for Daniel Jones: 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 600 yards rushing, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he was averaging about 200 yards a game last year. So, and he missed the last game. So he would have probably finished at about 3,400 yards if he would have played last year. I'm kind of similar. I'd like to see him at around, 3,800, 4,000 yards. I'd like to see him at anywhere between, 25 and 28 touchdown passes. I think should be more than reasonable. Your second year in the league. I know it's 10 more touchdowns, but I expect him to open up this offense. If you're paying Daniel Jones this amount of money, you better be opening up the offense a little bit more. And I agree. I think around as far as the rushing yards, anywhere between 5 and 6. I expect him to have probably maybe, 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns, something like that. I think that's more than reasonable. So I would expect him to have 30 total combined touchdowns, or a little bit over 30 combined touchdowns. And definitely probably well over 4,000 yards if you count his rushing and his passing. You're not getting paid this kind of money to not. And if he doesn't, then at that point it was a failure, in my opinion. This is the evaluation year for Daniel Jones with them. Go get him his weapons, see what he can do. If he doesn't wow you, they can move on.
Not next year, not 2024. They owe him 45.
No, not next year, but they
$45
could
million.
definitely, if he, I would say this, if he's not performing well, they're more than likely going to have a top 10, top 15 pick. And at that point, you know, if you do, and you like a Drake May or you like a Caleb Williams, which I don't think you'll get Caleb, he's probably going to be the consensus number one pick, but a Drake May is probably a guy that you could potentially move up for. And we also don't know what other quarterbacks could move up or emerge during the, you know, college season next year. Move up and get the guy that you think is the guy.
We have 70 people in the room. We have 14 legs. That's disgusting. You know, I will stop and I will just sit here and we won't talk. So let's get the likes up to at least 20. We got the big L doing it and doing it and doing it. L dropping in the room saying, hey, feels good to have the Sunday stream back. It's always good. We got LJ coming in and said, Love can go. I am done with him. He didn't lay out for the Eagles wide receiver. I was at that game. That was a bad play by Love. We got a super chat, of course, from the Zach Attack, and all super chats go to the Philadelphia Children's Hospital saying, fine. Wait, we got Chris. Let's see. Hold on, Chris. We're going to a minute. What position group should the Giants target in free agency? If it's me, if it's I'm going linebacker. I should rephrase that. I'm going linebackers. I'm doing multiple linebackers. I'm not going to give away fully what I would go for because I got a video coming out tomorrow about the free agency guide, but I would definitely go inside linebacker. I would want at least one inside linebacker and one quality outside linebacker. And I know we're going to have to probably replenish the safety position, find that CB2. You know, you got to look at the two guards, the center, wide receivers. There's a lot to go through, but the Giants can't go and get gashed like they did repeatedly last year. Off tackle left, off tackle right, up the middle, over the top. You can't. It was a game plan going back to the Cleveland preseason game 2 years ago that everyone's still following. And a lot of people are going to say, well, you need a bigger defensive tackle. He got a huge one, a 342-pound Dexter Lawrence. And the problem is, yes, you hope DJ Davidson comes up a little bit, but the problem is we need to have a linebacker that is attacking the line, that is coming up and not allowing the player to get in the second level. And I've said this a million times before. If you want to find a good inside linebacker, and you want to look at it via statistics, always look at how many solo tackles he has compared to assists. If he has, I've talked about it before, the year that Tate Crowder had 100,498 tackles. Majority of those were assists. They were pylon stats. You need to have your linebacker, especially your inside linebacker, be at the point of attack and have more tackles than assists. And that will tell you if he's actually at the point of attack. And there's a couple linebackers out there right now. I like David Long. I'll throw one out there. David Long right now with Tennessee Titans. Yes, he's a little bit undersized. He had the ACL injury. He missed he went out week 13. He has progressively shown that as he got more and more playing time, that he is a good stout inside linebacker. Some people are going to like him because he's a little bit short of statured. So was Sam Mills. So there was a lot of other linebackers that were 5'11" and under. And I think he could be a good guy he's got the speed. He can do some things in coverage. And like I said, his height is the biggest concern, but he's also a guy I think you can get for like $6, $7, $8 million. And he could be a starter right off the bat. What position group are you looking at, Rob?
Similar. I'm looking at linebacker. You know, I'm also gonna have a video that's gonna be coming out, but I mean, I'll drop some nuggets. Obviously, Tremaine Edmonds is probably the more popular name that's out there. Is the contract feasible? I think so. I mean, if they offer and they spread it out, the kid's only 24. You know, you could spread out, give him a 6-year deal, spread out his cap hit. That's a guy that I wouldn't mind backloading a contract a little bit because of his age and his production. That's going to be a popular name. I do expect them to speak with him just because they drafted him. Joe Schoen scouted him when they were in Buffalo. So I do expect them to have some type of communication. TJ Edwards is another name to keep your eye on as well. With Brandon Brown, I think he's going to be kind of banging down the door for a guy like TJ Edwards. So I would definitely go ahead and keep your eye there. Guard is another spot that I would like to look into. Maybe a guy like Aziz Simalu, the guard from Philadelphia. I know he's 29, but maybe bring him in. He might have a few good years left in him. He played really, really well for Philadelphia. There's also a guy from Tennessee, Nate Davis, that I like. He did pretty well for Tennessee last year. I wouldn't mind bringing him in. Wide receiver is a guy. We talked about that. Is a position that I'd like to go ahead and bring them in. Obviously, Odell, DJ Chark, so on and so forth, Michael Thomas, and depending on who else gets released, Jacoby Myers is the name that I would also keep your eye on as well. And the last position for me is tight end. I wouldn't be surprised if they were in. There's already been reports, from Pat Leonard and others that they are interested in potentially bringing in a tight end, whether that's Mike Gesicki or Dalton Schultz. It wouldn't surprise me one bit for them to be in that market. And I wouldn't mind a Dalton Schultz. I want them to go after guys and take them away from our divisional rivals. If they can get a guy like Dalton Schultz, if they can get a guy like a TJ Edwards, I wouldn't mind that. It gives you a little bit of an upper hand, get somebody in the building that knows them and go that route. So, but those are the positions. And D lineman would be another thing that I could see them going, maybe bringing back Dalvin Tomlinson, maybe, who knows?
The only thing you haven't mentioned is quarterback and punter.
Yeah, quarterback or punter. No, I don't know what they're going to do. Like as far as like backup, I think they're going to look into. I still think they might take a quarterback late, like a developmental guy, possibly maybe in like the 6th round or 7th round. They have a few 7th round draft picks. They may take one late. Keep to have a 3rd guy on the roster just in case Tyrod Taylor's not good to go. Who knows? But
all right, guys, we're up to 33 likes. That was good. We have 82 in the room.
That was impressive.
We need 50. We need 50
more.
I've already said this a million times. The wife has already said if we don't get the likes, the clicks, and the bleeps and the boops out, I can't do this anymore. And she is allowing me to come back and do live streams. So, and it's a Sunday. So let's get the likes up there. We got Chris coming in here saying, finally, RZeroB has come back to Online Big Blue. I didn't know you left.
Did I leave? I didn't know if
Rob. It's always good to have you, but I love Chris. Chris has always been a big supporter. Chris is always good. We got Randy dropping in here saying, do you think Daniel Jones would get those numbers? I don't see it. Well, here's the thing. You're paying your quarterback the 7th highest.
He better.
He's $40 million a year man. Yeah, he better.
He better.
I mean, I'm not paying him to throw the ball 14 times behind the line of scrimmage. I've said it before. There is a word in Webster's dictionary.
Vertical.
Love the default picture, by the way. Love the Ninja Turtle.
I know. You got to love Ninja Turtles, man. There's so many. And there's a new Ninja Turtles coming out movie done by Seth Rogen. It'll be out in a couple of weeks. We got Chris saying, don't see those numbers for DJ will never happen. Don't see it. Well, we got to see it. Bob says, DJ finally got paid. Until the MVP campaign starts, the people will cry again. Yeah, we're going to get to a couple of ones. First, ECK says 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, throwing 600 yards, 5 yards. I would take that. 5 yards rushing. I'd take that. Fabian, and this is what I want. I wanted to get to this stat because I wanted to get this because I love this and I love Fabian. Fabian knows how much I love him. Not living on stats except to make playoffs again. Here's the problem, and I'm not making fun of you, Fabian. DJ fans use stats exponentially when it's in their benefit. As soon as you point out things that are to their detriment, Daniel Jones does a lot more things than the stats will tell you. I love the year he was, I think he had the 3rd highest rating for deep ball passing. And then I would bring up the fact that he only threw 13. And the next quarterback threw 46. You talk about his completions, and then you bring up the fact that he completed 14 passes behind the line of scrimmage in one.
Well, look at his weapons.
You look at his weapons. You talk about the fact that you talk about the 5 game-winning drives, and Mike Too Nice, when I was on with him, pointed out that he was like 5 for 6 for like 15 yards. And the majority of those yards were rushing. But they don't want to talk about that. They want to, but as soon as they don't go to his favor, no, this is the statistical league. You pay your quarterback $40 million a year, you better have a top 10 offense. And your quarterback better be facilitating that
100%.
offense. And I've said this before, and a lot of people have said it. It's time to take the training wheels off of Daniel Jones. Stable was extremely intelligent. What he did was he knew he had a running. I don't call Daniel Jones a running quarterback. I'll call him a running quarterback by design. But he knew he had a quarterback that he could use as a running back almost. Well, the problem is those running backs don't last. Those quarterback running backs don't last very long in this league. And teams figure out quickly how to stop things. So I think we just need to remember, yes, while stats don't tell the whole story, if you are going to be a top 7 paid quarterback, you need to be within the top 10 statistically.
You need to be able to do it on all levels, because we saw it last season in a few of the games, against Philadelphia, against the Cowboys, against Seattle, when they stopped him from getting to the perimeter and stopped going ahead and allowing him to get on the outside and either make plays with his legs or try to, roll out and try to find somebody open, he kind of went into a shell.
When you ran into the real defense in Philadelphia.
Exactly. Yeah. When you ran into a real different. Yep. So
I
you got to be able.
Yeah.
And that's people, that's where it's going to matter. How are you going to adjust? And here's the other thing I don't like, and it irritates me, beyond belief, is people say, oh, well, if you put Daniel Jones on the 49ers, you put Daniel Jones on the Eagles, they'll probably win games. They'll probably get to the Super Bowl. They'll probably do this. Like Jalen Hurts or it was a product of his environment. Brock Purdy was a product of his environment. Well, what is going to happen when the Giants get a good offensive line and Giants fans are knocking down Jalen, they're knocking down some of these guys, and the Giants get a high quality offensive line and the Giants get high quality wide receivers, right? And Daniel Jones is having success. What if somebody turns around and say, well, you know what? If you take X and X guy and you put him on the Giants, he could do exactly what Daniel Jones is doing. What are you going to say? No, he can't. Daniel Jones is good. I hate it when you knock down opposing quarterbacks as if they're not performing well. And if Daniel Jones was in that same situation and it was reversed, people could be saying the exact same thing about Daniel that people say about Jalen or say about the San Francisco 49ers. It makes me laugh.
Sports critic, I did block Moon Fitz, and to Moon Fitz, yes, we are not going to sign OBJ. We got Damien says we need bloops for OBB. Yes, we need the likes, the bleeps, the cleeps, the bleeps, and the boops. I appreciate that, man. Damien, you've always been a good subscriber. Fabian, like I said, I'm never making fun of you, man. He says I'm a football fan as long as we make the playoffs. I agree, as long as we make the playoffs. I agree 100%. But the problem is, if Daniel Jones is going to give me the same stats that he gave me last year, why couldn't I just give him $20 million?
Exactly.
Why do I have to give him 40 to be at market value? Because market value that he got is for quarterbacks that throw for over 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns. So that's my thing. Stanley, thank you again for the super chat. Super chats go to the Philadelphia Children's Hospital. We need 3 new linebackers. We need 3 new offensive linemen, holes in the secondary, 2 wide receivers. How exactly is Schoen going to fill all those spots in 1 or 2 drafts alone? He's not. He's going to take time. And I said it this time, and I've said it before, Rob, I think the Giants are going to take a step back this year, only because if you take a look at the schedule, the Giants in the last 9 games went 3-5-1. They honestly could have gone 2-7 in those games. And they're going to face tougher defenses, tougher opponents this year. You look at what we're going to play, and they're probably going to take a step back a little bit because even after making the playoffs, you're still in a rebuild. And that's why I said I hope Shane doesn't feel the pressure to deviate from his plan that he talked about when he first got here about how to build this team and move away from that. And that's what concerns me a little bit. And that's like what Stanley says, there's a lot of stuff, Rob, this team needs.
There is. And Stanley pointed out, look, the middle linebacker or linebackers just in general was an issue for us last year. That's definitely something that needs to be addressed. We don't know, we don't know what's going to be happening with Beavers, right? Because unfortunately he suffered that ACL injury. So we don't know what player he's going to be. I'm excited to see him get on the field and see what he could be, right? So we don't know. But you have to act as if Darian Beavers is not here because you don't know what type of player he's going to be. So you can go out and get a Tremaine. You can go out and get a TJ Edwards. No talking bad about Micah McFadden, but Micah McFadden was not a top tier guy last year. Again, he's a rookie, but he definitely made some mistakes. Could he improve? Of course he could improve, but I don't see Micah McFadden as being a starting linebacker. And I definitely see him as a good rotational piece for the Giants. I don't necessarily think that that's a guy that's going to be starting. So yeah, you definitely need to go ahead and address that. Offensive line, Mark Lewinsky, he had his moments, but he was not the same player that he was, when he was with Indianapolis. And I don't expect it. He was playing it with Braden Smith. He was playing against next to Eric Fisher.
I've said it before a million times on the show that he, to me, is a systems guy. He didn't have a much of a career until he hit Indianapolis. He fit the Indianapolis system. He is like the Nate Solder. He came here and we didn't run the same system. He didn't do the same things well. And that's what caused him to, I'm not going to say flame.
He looked the same in Seattle. He looked the same with us that he looked like in Seattle. And Seattle did not have top tier offensive line.
That's kind of what I'm going with.
Yeah, and he came to us where we really didn't have a top tier offensive line, and that's why Seattle let him go, and he ended up going to Indianapolis. You have Nelson, you've got Ryan Kelly, who's a decent player at the center position in the National Football League, Braden Smith. So of course he's going to have some success. So we definitely need to address the center position. I would like for us to go ahead and get the guy from Michigan. You can get him in the later rounds. I like that kid, but they need to address the center position. They need to address the guard position, and then you said it yourself. 2 wide receivers. I expect them to try to go ahead and get a veteran guy, and then they're probably going to draft a guy in the 3rd or 4th round, I would think. But you gotta. This year is all about finding out what you have in Daniel Jones. Is Daniel Jones, you get him the weapons, is he going to take the next step? And if he's not, and I agree with Tim, I think we are going to take a step back. I think we're probably going to win about 7 games. I'll make the final call, once I see what all of the teams do that we're playing, free agency and the draft and everything like that and how they're going to look. But there's a chance that we win 2 less games, now, but do we lose more? And I think if we lose more than that, we lose less, win less than 7 games. It's because our offense is still not moving. And if our offense is not moving, it's going to be due to the quarterback. And if it is, it's time to move on. Go and get your guy. Then he becomes a bridge guy at that point, and then you move on. You need to find out what Daniel Jones is, period.
All right. Well, we'll burn through some of these questions also. I saw Blair. I saw you. We're going to talk about Ben Jones in a minute. But I want to say a big shout out to Mr. Lewis dropping in as always. Mr. Bruce.
So, Roldy.
What's the one? No, what happens if we sign Saquon long term? I think they're going to give Saquon a 2-year deal, not much else. Fabian comes back and says, Timmy, love you too. I'm not a DJ fan. I know you're not a DJ fan. What I'm saying is I don't care about his stats. If he fails to win games and makes the playoffs at 5,000 yards, 250 yards, it's failure to me. I understand that. We got to drop in the big super chat for my man, the Irish Rover, coming in. Thank you, Mrs. Tim, for the live stream this beautiful Sunday. The next week's will be an interesting one. Thank you, Mr. Rover. Mr. Rover is one of the subscribers that went to what we do, Rob. I don't know if you're familiar. I take subscribers to games, and we go into the coaches club, so we get to go on the field. We're on the sidelines, and we took a big group during one of the preseason games, and during the season, I tried to take different people. Then we also did. I took a couple people onto the field with me and do the flag ceremony where, the people that are on the field holding the flag, the big American flag. We did that like 4 or 5 times with different subscribers as well. So
awesome.
Mr. Rover, I'm not gonna say where he flew in from, but he actually flew in from Dom from the UK was the one that flew the furthest to go to a game with us. But Mr. Rover was the second person. So I always want to give a big shout out to Mr. Rover. And again, as always, thank you for your service, my friend. We got to drop in the super chat from Mr. Stanley. He says, and we all know this too, how this fan base and the New Yorkers in general swing in emotions. The people celebrating DJ will do a 180 if he wins 5 or 6 games.
I agree.
I can't disagree with that. I can't
disagree.
I can't disagree with that 100%. Abraham wants to say here, we need guys that can tackle. Every year our guys can't tackle for some reason. Yeah, he's right. I mean, there has been, we talk about, and I'm not making fun of Rob, I'm not making fun of Tate Crowder, but I've said this a million times before. Tate Crowder had the big hit on Derrick Henry. Of course, he actually didn't hit him head on. He hit him off to the side. And Derrick Henry even said when he came out at halftime that he was running too high. He adjusted his shoulders, and we know what happened. But he is a guy that just was another one that had more assists than he ever had solo tackles. And he's a guy that whiffed a lot in reference to making tackles. They did bring him back on the practice squad, but he is 100% right. I'm not blaming the coaching staff for his inability to tackle. I think as a former safety and linebacker myself, I know tackling is technique. And I just don't think that Tate Crowder really ever was taught the proper technique, especially when he bumped up into the NFL level, which is why mercifully they moved on from him towards the latter half of the season.
I agree. Yeah, his tackling was not very good. He definitely missed on a lot, got caught in the wash a lot too. He didn't know how to navigate through traffic. And then, he had some flash plays here and there, but yeah, he never really, again, a rotational guy. I put him on the same level as I put like a Micah McFadden, although I think McFadden is a better tackler. But he is a rotational guy. He's not a guy that's going to be your starting middle linebacker.
We always use the term lost in the sauce because that's what he used to get all the time. He would get in that middle of that line and that he would never. Randy wants to know, what do you think changed when Shane said during the bye week that he wouldn't let the season deter him from his plan to rebuild? He seems to have done that with the plan. This is what I worry about, Ram. And this is like I said, I get concerned about this. Is Shane going to deviate from what he spoke about when he first got here? Building through the draft, using your money smartly. I don't think success, or maybe it did. I don't know. Do you think maybe success I don't want to say is getting to him a little bit, but he does some of the things he's been saying and some of the things he's been doing kind of goes against what he's talked about, overpaying for players, getting players that, I like the contract for Daniel Jones, but technically you're probably not going to get out from that contract after 2015. because you got an $18 million dead cap number on that third year. I mean, but he seems to me in some ways not sticking strictly to the plan that was built through the draft, augment through free agency, build a consistent winner from the ground up, find your building blocks. Do you have any concerns going into this free agency that he may pull a Gettleman and overspend, over speculate, and then the Giants in a couple of years are right back in the same situation they were before?
I mean, you always got to have that on your mind, but I think it's really just going to deter. That determination will be how active he is in free agency. We know that we need to upgrade the team. You're going to have to and you're not going to be able to draft every position that you need and fill it with decent players. And I think they want to stay competitive, but they want to also be able to build exactly how they want to do, which is exactly what Gettleman said he wanted to do, but ultimately couldn't get it done. He did the opposite. So I do see, depending on how active they are in free agency, will determine that. I think with the contract that they gave with Daniel Jones, it wasn't an all-in contract. I think it was more of okay, I know you had 2 bad years. I see what you did here with us. I know the roster situation. And I think they're going to try to give him a little bit more weapons and try to upgrade. I think they know how bad the offensive line was last year. I think they know where the weapons were last year. So I do think that they're going to go ahead and try to upgrade that in some capacity, those two things. But ultimately, I think that they know defense is what's going to keep them in games. Defense is what was keeping us in games this past season. So I think that they know that they're going to have to upgrade on the defensive side to stop the running game and to slow that down and be better there. And they need to get younger on the defense and have some key guys. So I look for them to look at, upgrading at the defensive backs and getting that lockdown corner, getting the middle linebackers, getting more help on the defensive line. I don't think it's an all-in unless he goes on this crazy spree and signs 10, 15 free agents, and you get Tremaine and you give him a big contract, Odell, and you give him a big contract, and you give a guard a big contract, or, we said we're going to talk about it, but you go and you give Gary Bradbury or Ben Jones a big contract. Then at that point, I'm like, all right, so you're clearly pushing all your chips in this season and going for it. I think that there's a way that they could still do it, still evaluate the roster, and ultimately we have 11 picks. So he's going to take those 11 draft picks, build the roster that way, and I think he's just trying to go through the motions. If I had to make a choice, I don't think so. I don't think that he's over buying into what happened last year. I don't. I think he's just trying to get the roster better to where they can compete in the division and be a little bit of a tougher team to play, and ultimately still evaluating his key positions. Because if they weren't bringing back Jones, if they were sold on not bringing back Jones, Barkley wouldn't be back either. I think he would have let them both go. I think the only reason why Barkley's here is because they wanted to reevaluate Daniel Jones, and they needed Barkley here as well.
What did someone ask? What's our video tomorrow? Our video tomorrow, of course, is going to be all about the New York Giants. 2000 free agency. Is Shane going to be rolling it in? This is going to be tomorrow's video. Make sure you look for that thumbnail. It's going to talk all about free agency. It's going to talk about all that. It's going to talk about all that.
I love the visor.
You know what? My new crack staff. I give them crap, but I got to give them credit as well. RVFD, one of my friends, one of my brothers, says, would you prefer to completely shore up one or two positions, fix the O-line, the linebackers this offseason, or give a little help to each position: outside linebacker, wide receiver, safety, quarterback, defensive line. You know what we always say?
You say I have a plethora of piñatas?
We don't have a plethora of pinatas, but we have a plethora of places that we need to fill positions. And I personally, if I'm looking at it, we're only at 46 likes. I'm not going to give you the answer until we hit 50.
You should implement
I'll just take out the ping pong balls and play with the ping pong balls until I get to.
You should implement the Jeopardy waiting.
No, I just stay quiet, and I think some people prefer that.
Yeah.
If
I know people prefer it with me.
Oh shit! You haven't been on this show long enough. Hatred abounds, but you know what? We have broad shoulders. We can handle it. If it's me, RFFD, I'm shoring up 2 positions like you spoke of as a priority. I'm shoring up the offensive line and the linebackers in free agency. I'm going offense in the draft, and I want to try to find a guard. But Blair's got a question. You brought the name up a moment ago. Ben Jones, center from the Tennessee Titans, 33 years old, coming off an injury. He's got waived because it was an injury waive. He failed his physical, which is why they waived him. I think my personal thought, Rob, it's people are drawn to the name Ben Jones because it's a name, not because of the fact that he's 33 years old, got waived because he failed his physical. They are interested in bringing him because it's a big name center. It's like a Mike Mamula, towards the end of his career, everyone wanted Mike Mamula, even though he was pretty much done. And I think Schoen is going to stay away from a 33-year-old center who got waived because he failed his physical.
Agreed. I would think that if Schoen is going to go into free agency at the center position, Connor McGovern is a name to keep an eye on, a guy that they could go after. They may look at Garrett Bradbury. I'm sure he would rather be on Dexter Lawrence's team than have to play against him, especially he played against him in the playoff game and got absolutely embarrassed multiple times. But me personally, look, everybody wants to sign these guys. Go and get your guy in the draft. Right. Get a young player that will develop, that can look at a lot of these young centers that are in the league. Humphreys from Kansas City was a draft. Yep. He was in the draft. Creed Humphreys. And you have others. Jason Kelce, obviously Hall of Famer. He was in the draft. He played for a long time. So go get your guys in the draft, because just because you see a guy like Ben Jones, or you see a guy like Bradbury, and you want that position to be addressed so badly, just because they had success in one spot doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have success in another spot. You're never going to always hit a diamond in the rough. I even heard people say, "Can we go get Rodney Hudson?" What? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You realize the last time the Giants actually drafted a traditional center was Weston Richburg? And that was like in the 3rd or 4th round. And he was a decent player. He was a decent player.
Injuries derailed him, went over to the 49ers, and injuries derailed him.
Derailed him again. So
Damian Jackson says, I thought this year was DJ's evaluation year. We're not gonna keep harping on the DJ train, but I've said this a million times. This is what DJ needs to do this year.
Are you a big man? Huh? I'm talking to you. What? You wake up in the morning, you say, I put on my big boy pants. Look, I'm wearing a belt. I got big boy pants on.
It's big boy pant time. And that's all I'm going to say. That's people say I'm a DJ hater. No, I'm a DJ realist. It's big boy pant time. And even to Fabian's point, he would rather have the wins than the stats. My mind, you get paid $40 million a year. You got to have both. So this last year to me, I guess could be considered the evaluation year. Maybe we want to call this year the prove it again year. That's the only thing I can think about. What is EC? Let's see here. ECK says, I like Evan Brown. I saw that one guy looked as Evan Brown. He should be a pretty good guard from the Lions. Evan Brown's not going anywhere. Shouldn't go for two. Evan Brown there was actually talks about him being franchise tagged. So I don't think Evan Brown is going to leave Detroit unless the Giants bowl him over with a big money offer, because I actually do like him. I have him on my list as well.
Was he drafted by them, or he signed there in free agency? I believe he come over.
I believe he signed there in free agency, but his career really took off the last 2 years, and he's been a stalwart of that line and very consistent. I think that's a guy that I know. Like I said, I know Detroit. There was speculation that they might have actually dropped the tag on him. So let me get to the super chat from the Zack Attack. Zack Attack says the first press conference when Shane was here says it's a collective. Which makes sense now that DJ's contract played out. I do think Mara had a hand in the DJ contract. I'm not gonna be naive about it. We saw in the papers that Kevin Abrams was involved in the negotiation of this contract as well, which made me cringe slightly.
Yeah,
we all know.
When you told me that, I was like, no, he's involved. No,
and even Big Dash says Abrams is still our contract guy. Yeah, that makes me. Yes, he is not the final say of the negotiation of the contract, but he is part of the contract crew now. We got James Williams dropping in the chat. My brother from another mother. Good morning, everyone. Hit the damn like, says Irish Rover. I'm gonna try to get through these guys. I'm sorry, I'm a little behind today.
That's what she said.
So we've got to make sure we keep rolling along here as much as we possibly can. Jose G says, we all know that signing Jones was a Mara move. I don't think it was let's dispel this right now, Rob. I'm going to dispel something. I'm going to
dispel it.
I got nothing. I do think, I don't think this was a Mara move, the Daniel Jones move. I don't think so. I think that maybe Shane or maybe Dable does see something in this quarterback. My concern with this, and I've said it a million times in the past, if you whiff on this contract, if you whiff on this money for Shane and Dable will not be able to draft a quarterback in 2024. If Daniel Jones regresses completely and you gave him 80+ million guaranteed, technically 91 guaranteed with some of the incentives he can easily reach, and they have 2 losing seasons in a row, and Daniel Jones is still throwing for 3,000 yards, they are not going to let Shane or Dable draft a quarterback, because I don't think either one of them will be here, or one of them won't be here, and I think it's going to be Shane. Because of the fact that I've said this a million times before, in the NFL, you win with your guys. Shane and Dable giving Daniel Jones this contract is saying that Daniel Jones is their guy. Usually don't get to draft usually when a general manager comes in and takes a quarterback and that quarterback fails, what happens to that general manager? He's usually gone. He doesn't get to draft another quarterback. So in some ways, this is Shane drafting the quarterback. We're at 56 likes. Let's get up to 70. Come on, guys. We got 116 people in the room. I don't think like I said, I think the Eli contract was a Mara thing. I'm not on the boat that this was a Mara thing.
I'm in the same boat with you. I don't think that I think Mara was slightly involved, but not as much involved as people let on or would like to think. I do think that this was a Joe Schoen and Brian Dable decision. And he kind of alluded to it in his press conference after the deal was done. You know, he felt that they did some good things. He didn't want to not overlook he basically kind of shit on Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge, you know, for the 2 years that Daniel had him there. I don't know if anybody picked up on that, but he kind of shit on them a little bit, and said, you got to look at his, year 2 and year 3, the injury situation, the weapon situation is just how the whole thing was handled. So I think that I said that he worked his way into returning, and this was basically a 2-year franchise tag is basically what it is, but they do have an out to get out in 2 years, so either he's going to outperform himself and he's going to do great. And hey, you got a guy that is going to be a guy and you're going to be looking to give him a new contract in 2 years. Right. Or B, he's not going to be your guy, and they could look into drafting a quarterback next year, and then he becomes a bridge. But I do not think that this was fully a Mara decision. I think this was a Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll decision. I don't agree, though, with the only thing I don't agree with Tim is I do think they will have an opportunity to draft a quarterback.
Okay, you've learned the lesson. If you don't agree with me, just keep your mouth shut. We can look at the nice things I got put up back again until Rob comes out of timeout.
I do feel that they will get
learn your lesson that I am always right.
Well, can we not disagree?
No.
Can we not?
No, I'm always right. Someone's in the chat said the other day, you think you're always right. And I killed James Williams because I said, yeah, I am. And for people that don't know, that's sarcasm.
Yeah, it's very much sarcasm.
It's
Italians do that.
sarcasm, and I laugh because I have to try to find it because I still haven't labeled the soundboard. It is labeled, but I lost the sheet. We have a button for that.
Warning, sarcasm. Warning, sarcasm.
Warning, sarcasm.
It's sarcasm, guys. It's sarcasm.
I do think that they'll have an opportunity to draft a quarterback, though. That I do.
I don't think they will because it's the way this league is now that you'll be 4 years into your tenure, and they're not going to let you draft a quarterback 4 years into your tenure.
I do agree with you, though, that if one of them is going to lose their job, it would be Schoen. It would be Schoen. I think Daves can coach with anybody, and I think people would love to have Daves as their coach. I think Schoen would be the scapegoat, and if I had to choose between the two.
I agree. Let's burn through some of these questions here. I like this one. And our RFFD always keeps me in check. Keep in mind, Crowder was a running back originally at college. He should have been on a practice squad to learn technique prior to playing, prevents poor techniques, but ingrained into his playing style. I'm going to tell you right this as a college player, as a high school player that played both linebacker and safety. Technique can be taught in reference to tackling, but you need to have the instinct going back and the teaching going back to Pop Warner, where they teach you to, lead with your shoulder or wrap up, drive with your legs into the ground. You have to learn that from a young age. And I'm not bashing Tay Crowder. I just think that Tay, he just was, it is what it is. Jose G says, we all know that signing Jones was a Mara thing. What does Chris have to say? Also, Chris says he's pivoting because Mara is putting his thumb on the scale. Mara can't let go. I don't think he is. Mr. Lewis drops in with the knowledge saying he's not. I agree. I don't know if he's not sticking to the plan yet, Rob, but we don't know yet.
We don't know. Free agency will let us know exactly what he's doing.
We got to run through. We're way behind. And I'm sorry, guys. Mara has his hands all over it. We also have, what do we got here? Mara had nothing to do with the signing of Jones. Cut it out, Jones. Just stop. Y'all are constantly looking to flirt the crutch to stand on. It's absolutely ridiculous at this point. Delusional. I love you, brother, but I'm gonna have to ban you if you keep talking like that because I'm always right. And Jose G and them are gonna talk to you about that. Oh, we got Big Dash coming in here saying yes. I already said that it is the thing. That's how far behind I am. Kevin dropping in saying good morning, guys. We got Todd Taylor also coming in and said package 5 picks, move up in the draft, and take a punter.
Take a punter.
We got the James Williams, of course, in there as well. Hey, James Williams yelling out saying, y'all heard a Rover, hit that like button. What's up, James, says the Rover. Mr. Bruce says, any live video chats for guests, have something to get off my chest about the NY midgets. We are not doing a live. We are not going to do call in for a little bit after what happened last time. And those that do not know, someone felt it necessary to try to use the N word repeatedly when I allowed people to call in, and that moron kind of ruined it for everybody. And we're gonna do the call-ins again, but we're gonna start. We have a process coming up that we're gonna screen people before they call in, and of course we know that's never 100%. But and I know the names of the people that did what they did. So, and one of them actually had his face on the video for a minute. And I'm going to tell you this, and I've said this a million times before, and I'm a man of my word. If I see you at the stadium, I'm going to punch you in the back of the head. Plain and simple, because you're a fucking idiot. Let's move on here. Rob just once. I wish I didn't say what I thought. We got Mark Hernandez also dropping and saying, what's up, Tim? Let's go, Big Blue. Let's see here. Chris says, and I saw this before, move Gates to center. I don't like that idea. I know, and Rob, I know Gates played okay that 1 year he played at center. Of course, he was the only center that I have ever seen since watching this team since 1976 that got a holding penalty on a defensive tackle by getting the guy when what looked like the Heimlich maneuver because he got him by the back of the neck from behind. I've never seen that before in the history of my life. I think he's a better guard than he's going to be center. I think coming off the injury is going to be tough. But I don't see them moving Nick Gates back to center.
I don't see that either, but I do think that he's a better center than he is guard, strictly because the thing that I like between him and John Feliciano is he was more physical off the ball, where John Feliciano really wasn't that much physical off the ball. Feliciano's a great puller, where Nick Gates is not a very good puller. but right off the rip, I think Nick Gates is right off the snap is a little bit more physical. And I just like the way that he gets in people's faces. He's got like that tough in your face type of mindset. But I don't think that he will be back. I'd be shocked if he is. If he is, it's going to be a low deal, and he's going to be a rotational piece. I don't think he's going to be a starter on the team.
We have 112 people in the room. We got 64 likes. I wanted to get up to 70. Big Dash said, what do we got here? Irish River says, I like Gates. Hope we keep him as depth. That's kind of what Rob was just saying. We got Chris saying, Big Dash in the house. Big Dash knows. If you don't know Big Dash knows, Big Dash is another up-and-coming giant YouTuber. Go find his channel. I used to have it in the link, but Big Dash, if you want, put your channel in the link itself. We got Mr. Lewis. Welcome him, Big Dash. Everyone. It's a love fest. Sal says Shane is going to run it back with Feliciano. I just hope he drafts a true center with and goes with the kid from Michigan. I can never say his name, and I don't want to butcher it.
Olutumi.
Okay. If they are serious. We're going to talk about the draft. Let's get through free agency first. James Williams also says we need to sign our quarterback to a new deal, and he's already third in the division. That's people have talked about that he is the third ranked quarterback in the division. If Washington gets Lamar, he'll be fourth.
It's still a possibility that they get Lamar. Still a possibility.
I'm not going to say that's wrong. Stu says I'm okay with DJ. Whatever they gave him more than $35 million, he better beat Dallas and Philadelphia at least once. He better beat Dallas, Philadelphia, and Washington. And like I said,
he barely beat Washington last year. Barely.
He only beat Washington once because he tied, and they didn't even let him throw in that overtime.
Yeah,
which was
didn't let him throw in the overtime. And in the first game, I think they only had like 20 yards of offense the entire second half.
Yeah,
of the game.
It's fun. Big Al was on the show last week, and we were talking about because he went with me to that game when we were in the tunnel. Where the players go in and out. We were in the tunnel, and when it went into overtime, Joe Schoen, and we have the video on one of the videos, came running down the tunnel to get back on the field because I think he thought they were going to win the game. And then they tied the game, and he was the first one up the tunnel. And it was funny because I have it on video, and Joe Schoen is mouthing, I cannot believe we lost this fucking game. And I laugh because I think about that all the time, because of the fact that it was one of those games at home against what some people thought was an inferior team, and your quarterback couldn't move the ball through the air, and they shut down the run that game. So, and I get concerned about that because I've said this before. People thought the 46 zone was going to be unstoppable. People thought the run and shoot was going to be unstoppable. People thought the red gun was going to be unstoppable. People thought the West Coast offense was going to be unstoppable. The league figures it out. The more film you get, the more they learn tendencies, the more they know what to do, and they know how to stop the run. I do not see DJ running as much this year as he ran last year because I think they even showed it, and I point out the Texans game and the Bears game. Play action roll out to the right. You either throw it to the tight end or he ran. And they ripped both the Texans and the Bears in the first half with that play like 4 or 5 times. The Bears and Texans then shut that down, and both of those games became a hell of a lot closer than they should have been at home against very inferior teams. You had the freaking dangerous David Mills. Yep. I mean, it was a little scary. So I think that. But let's run. Oh, we got Talk with Zoe in the room as also. If you don't know Talk with Zoe, he is another young YouTuber coming up. Talk with Zoe actually was on the field with me in reference to doing the American flag ceremony. I've told this story before. Usually the flag is either a big square, Rob, or they have it in the shape of the country.
Yeah.
It was Lorenzo and I were actually doing it when it was the shape of the country. And they have a practice, and then you go to the practice, and then you come back to do it on the field during the game. I mean, during the ceremony. The problem was half the people didn't show up that were on our side. So him and I are trying to hold up all of Maine by ourselves. And I love it because they have these people that come in and teach you how to do it. And we try to explain to them, hey, listen, we're short like 3 guys. And you have to wave the flag at one point. And the guy looks at me and goes, you'll be all right. and they have these straps. So now my arms, I got long arms, but now my arms are like this. I mean, I'm like strapped over, and we're trying to, and then all of a sudden Lorenzo starts making waves going up and down. And I told him at one point, I said, I thought I was going to see myself on SportsCenter as the guy that got sucked under Maine as he was trying to hold up the flag during the halftime ceremony. So if you don't know Talk with Zoe, make sure you go out and find this channel. Zoe wants to, you think it's possible that Jones doesn't succeed, they draft a quarterback next year and use DJ as a bridge quarterback? I think you answered that before, Rob. I'm gonna let you grab that one.
Yeah, I definitely do think so. Zoe, I think if it's a point where they struggle this year and they have a top 10, top 15 pick, and there's a guy that they like in the draft, and at that point, if they feel that based on what they saw, that DJ is not going to move any further, then yeah, I do think that they would move on. He becomes a bridge, and they'll move on and move up and get their guy at that particular point in time. I do.
Fabian with the question. I saw this question before, Fabian. I was going to get it, but thank you for the super chat. All super chats go to the Philadelphia Children's Hospitals. Who's always right, you or your wife? My wife is 4'11", very petite, and she's Puerto Rican and Native American. So my wife is always right. 100%.
Smart man.
100%. So I always say 100%.
So she put you in timeout.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like I said, I don't want to get cut. I talk about that all the time. We know that.
I don't want no problem. I don't want no problem.
I don't want no problem. No, I'm not gonna tell that story because I have a story I tell about what she said she would do to me in reference to chopping me up and feeding me to my mother. So I mean,
oh goodness gracious.
Nothing but love, and I think she's half joking. So but everyone knows, and James
like 70% serious.
She's probably 70%. James Lamar, who won the MVP, stat stacker. Yes, and James has met Mrs. Online Big Blue. James has been over the house multiple times, so he knows. Nothing. I got nothing but love for my wife, and yes, my wife is always right. Let's see here. We got Turbo saying, "Hello, Giant fans. Quick question." What's your opinion about Rodgers to the Jets? Rodgers to the Jets. I was tweeting yesterday and talked to a couple people that it's pretty much a done deal. The question is whether Rodgers wants to go to the Jets. And of course, this isn't Giant talk, but I would probably be upset, Rob, if Rodgers went to the Jets. I would not be happy because they got discount double checks and we got Daniel Jones. I mean, I mean, if you're looking to be in a win now mode, in some ways, the Jets have some talent, and they could be a quarterback away from really making a run at it. Maybe not the playoffs. I'm Super Bowl, but maybe the playoffs or anything else. I mean, having Aaron Rodgers is not a bad way to start.
No, definitely not. They have a top 5 defense last year. A lot of their guys that they got contributions from, were good. Jermaine Johnson really came on, played well last year for him. Quentin Williams next to Dexter Lawrence, those two guys had a huge jump in production last year. And they got some young guys at the corner position, with Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, the 2 draft picks that they had from last year really emerged offensive and defensive rookie of the years there. So I definitely think that there is something there. I definitely think it makes them a lot more dangerous. We have to play them this year. So that's going to be interesting if that were to happen. But I'm sure Giants fans will be like, well, we beat Aaron Rodgers when he was in Green Bay and we beat him already. So we're not really scared. Well, you should be, because he's got I think this is probably going to be the best defense that Rodgers has had is probably in his entire career. So he may not have to do everything on his own. They may be getting turnovers. They may put them in good field position or at short fields. And I don't want him to go there because I would hate for OBJ to come back to New York, but to be a Jet and not be a Giant. That would make me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. You know what makes me sick to my stomach? 109 people, 68 likes. That makes me sick to my stomach.
It's unacceptable.
I got to get to 75, guys. If you want me to do this again, I got to get to 75. James Williams says you guys are making me hate the Giants. I swear. Well, James, I know James, James is one of those fans that he's very passionate. He lives with his passion. But the one thing I really love about James, and everyone knows James is my brother, that he understands the sport, and he understands that sometimes Giant fans go a little over top. Like when someone, and we've talked about this before, Rob, someone gets waived It's always Giant fans. You always hear in the call-in shows, this is Bob from New York. What do you think we should? Well, Ben Jones just got waived. We need to sign him right away. That's what you get a lot of times with Giant fans, and they don't think about it. And I think that's what makes James a little upset, that we don't think about the football aspect of it. We think about the name of the player that we're going to bring in, and we talked about that. Let's move on to some of these others. We got to grab some of these. Jersey Beaner coming in. Tim, do you think the NFC East are going to do cartwheels at the Giants kept Daniel Jones? I will say this, Rob. I know people that work in Philadelphia, and I know someone that used to work in Washington, and neither one of those people are upset. We'll say that the Giants are bringing back Daniel Jones. Do you think anyone's worried in the NFC East?
Well, I think Josina Anderson said that, or was it Mrs. Martin said that she spoke with a NFL executive, a GM, who was laughing at the decision of bringing back Daniel Jones. And for me, if I had to take a guess, it was probably Howie Roseman.
It
was Howie Roseman. So, listen, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, Shane's either going to look like a genius or he's going to look like an absolute clown and a joke. And
that is the best way to look at it. And I've said this before. I'm always riding the Shane train. But to your point, he is either going to look like the mad scientist that put this all together, that he's Dr. Evil. He knew everything that no one else knew, or he's going to
look like Bobo the Clown.
Yeah. And I keep saying you got to put your faith in it. You got to put your faith. As Stanley wants to know, and this is a non-Giant question. Hey Tim, I know this ain't Giant related, but is John Morant's career in the NBA over? No. If Gilbert Arenas can threaten his teammate in a card game in the locker room with a loaded handgun, I think Ja is going to be. He's going to have some issues, but I think he's probably going to have a suspension coming down. And I saw the video in the strip club, but there's been plenty of players that have gone to strip clubs and done stupid things. I think I'm not saying his career is over, but I'm also saying that we've said it before and I've said it to James Williams, that a lot of times talent trumps your criminal behavior. So unless something else comes out, I think he might get dinged for the rest of the season, but unless something else comes out, like I said, he's too talented to not be in the NBA. And I know that's cynical to say, but I've seen it a million times before. If you have talent, you can do certain things and just be, Adrian Peterson was basically accused of beating his kid, but he was Adrian Peterson. Ray Rice at the tail end of his career did what he did in the elevator and his career was over. You can't compare, beating your wife to beating your child, which is worse, but one still had a large amount of talent. No. One was on the downslope of his career. So that's just sports.
Look at Deshaun Watson, everything that happened with Deshaun. If that was any other player, he probably would be out of the league, wouldn't even be thought about. But because it's Deshaun Watson, he got another opportunity. He got a $240 million guaranteed contract. And the rest is history.
Yeah. Tim, you rock. I already know that, but thank you. It's greatly apprecited. Rob semi-rocks.
I'm not even close.
He's not even close. We all know that. We all know who's carrying this shit. Jose G says, what the mix? Yeah, she's always right. Of course she's always right. Yeah, with that mix, she's always right. Yes, of course. 100%. Fabian also says 411, don't mess with those. No. I always tell the story, Rob. I used to be, and it was funny because Mike Lee, who's not in the chat, I used to be a bouncer in Philadelphia when I was in my youth. And I always talk about how I used to get beat up. And I was laughing because Mike Lee I actually threw out some of the people that he was with one night, and he remembered it. And I was laughing because he's like, I kind of remember you. And this was 30 years ago, wherever it was. And I always tell the story that I've taken on guys that were like twice my size. I've taken on 3-4 people at once, but I once got my ass kicked by someone that you can't use the word midget anymore because people get in trouble. That's LP or a little person. I once got my ass kicked by a little person. And I'm not saying like, I'm saying this. I got to say this guy was like 4'9". And I got made fun of unmercilessly for weeks after that. And I kept trying to tell people he's 4'9". I had nothing to grab onto. and my nose was bleeding. I kept telling, because he kept hitting me like this, hit me up, and I'm like, and I'm trying to find him, and I kept trying to tell people.
So you got your ass kicked by a hornswoggle.
Yeah. 100%. He might have been living in the tree with Dom making cookies, but I couldn't get him. So you never mess with those people that are that slow. You never mess people that small. You never stay away from them. Zach says, happy wife, happy life. Mr. Irish River says, my wife has Bobbit. Line of thought. Yikes. Yes, we don't want the Bobbitt question. People aren't going to know what's her name, Lorena Bobbitt is. A lot of people. She cut off her husband's penis. So we're gonna say that. Let's see. Let's get some giant chat in here before we wrap this up. If Rodgers goes to the Jets, they'll be on the top of the AFC East next year. I agree. We got Mark Stewart dropping in the house as well. We got Mr. Esquire saying, what if Shane told Mara, I'll get on board with signing DJ, but I can't get fired if I doesn't work out and get another chance to draft a quarterback? I don't see that happening.
I mean, that could have been probably like a side conversation, handshake conversation, maybe. But this is a guy also that's told Joe Judge he was coming back for a third year and got fired.
I think Joe Judge ran himself out of town. He
did some stupid shit. But this is also the same guy that told, was it Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese to rotate the quarterbacks, and then got backlash and then fired them the very next day.
Turned around and blamed them both. Oh, it wasn't me. I told him the story.
Nothing is off the table with John Mara.
Yeah, I agree. I forgot it's Admiral Mutombo. I promoted him. Ruben Randall or Darius Slayton. I'm taking Darius Slayton. Ruben Randall.
Yeah, Darius Slayton.
Ruben Randall was a hot mess. Ruben Randall was the only wide receiver we saw Eli Manning yell at during that Chicago game. I think it was a Thursday night game where Eli threw three quarter interceptions, and they are all to Randall, and Randall ran the wrong route every time.
Fans wanted Ruben Randall to be better than what Mario Manningham was, and he just was never going to live up to that. Never going to live up to that.
No, that's Lewis wants to know, knowing we just got out of the Gettleman situation to now head down the same path once again and not getting a true rebuild like most of us deserve is travesty. Mr. Lewis, I agree with you on 99% of the stuff. I really do. But we don't know yet. We don't. Yeah. I mean, if to Rob's point, if Shane goes out and signs all these big name people, starts pushing the cap space into 2024 with big contracts, then I will be more concerned that he is not doing what he said he was going to do. I have to give Shane the benefit of the doubt until we see otherwise.
Agreed.
I mean, I think that's the best way to look at it. Let's jump into the super chat real quick. We got Fabian also dropping super chat. All super chats go to the Philadelphia Children's Possible. He was throwing combos at your knees. He was throwing uppercuts, which was smart because I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him, man.
It's unbelievable. I'm never going to let you live that down, by the way.
Oh no, everyone knows it. It's like folklore.
Well, this is the first I've heard it.
It's folklore on South Street in Philadelphia. It used to be a bar called Who's on Third, and it's like still there's that story, and the time that we got shot at when we threw somebody out, and we were all ducking behind the cars, and the police come over, and they say, well, "Why are you ducking behind the cars?" And then another shot went out, and the next thing I know, the cop's sitting right next to me and looks at me and goes, "Oh." I was like, okay.
Unbelievable.
Oh, our youth days. Let's see here. My wife. Let's see what Randy has to say. Randy has to say, to piggyback off Zoe's question, what kind of season from Jones would be considered unsuccessful and make them want to move on from him? Oh, that's a good question. That's like a reverse question. Why don't you take that one first? What would be anti-Jones season?
For me, if they upgrade the roster and he puts up the same numbers, that's a regression in my opinion. Because if they're gonna go ahead and address the offensive line, draft a wide receiver, maybe bring in a veteran, whether it's Chark, D-Hop, OBJ, whoever, and you don't progress, and your numbers basically almost kind of stay the same what did he have this year? 22 touchdowns. So if he has like 22, 23 total touchdowns, he's running for 700 yards, 800 yards. He's just slightly over 3,000 yards passing. To me, I'm not paying you that much money to do the exact same thing that you did the year prior, especially if we're not winning the same amount of games. Absolutely not. So if he stays the same, to me,
what if he stays
out.
the same and they win the 9 games again?
If he stays the same,
wait, better question. Stays the same, they win 9 games, but they miss the playoffs.
I think at that point it's still the same situation. I think it's the same situation in my opinion, because I have to look at, okay, we upgraded this. So I got him on receivers. I upgraded the line. I think they would have to look at it collectively. Like, okay, where was our offensive line ranked this year as opposed to the previous year? Okay, so the offensive line improved. Okay, let's look at the production from the wide receivers. You're going to get get to see them playing on the field. Okay, they're getting the separation. The quarterback is just not pulling the trigger. At that point, if he puts up the same stats, the same numbers, and we're in one possession games, and we win, especially if we only win one division game, and he has better weapons, yes. Even with the same record at 9-7-1, even whatever, or 9-8, or whatever the case may be, yeah, I think at that point they're gonna say, okay, clearly he's not the guy. He's not taking another leap.
And that's what Chris says. If DJ has a crap season next year, they're not going to get rid of him. I hate to tell you that. No, they're not, because they owe him $45 million next year.
Yeah, they're not going to give him, but he becomes a bridge.
Yeah, he becomes a bridge. Keith Ritter says he's in it for the likes, guys. Yeah, I am in it for the likes, because likes help the channel. So we're at 77 likes. Let's try to get to 100 before we can go. And we're going to put Keith in timeout, because you know why.
But that's okay. Remember, there are no stupid questions, just stupid people.
So that's why we're going to move on. We're going to move on from him. We've already gave the big shout out to Mark. I would just like saying good morning to Mark. We got Brian. What does Brian have to say here? Tim, besides linebacker, obviously, what position would you think is the first in free agency corner? If I'm not going linebacker, Rob, I'm not going linebacker. The guard position is kind of weak right now outside of the top. It's
he only got Ben Powers there. Isaac Simalu.
I like Ben. I actually like Ben a lot.
Yeah, I like Ben. I like Ben Powers. That's a guy that I really wanted Ellington Jenkins before he got his extension during the season. That was a guy that I thought that they should look at. Ben Powers is a good one. Isaac Simalu is a good one. And like I brought up, Nate Davis from Tennessee is a good player as well. But if it's not linebacker, I would almost say it's probably going to be wide receiver, that they would probably, look into. There's not that many corners. I mean, maybe a Marcus Peters or something like that, but I just don't see that. I think it's going to be either a wide receiver or an offensive or a linebacker. If it's not that, I think it's wide receiver. I don't see being a line.
There is a corner that I like, and it's going to be part of the video tomorrow. And I see someone asking a question. You got Dean, who's the big one. You got Bradbury. You got Peters. But like I said, I am sold on. I like Byron Murphy, the kid out of.
I saw that
out of
from Arizona. Yeah,
the Cardinals. Now he did miss 8 games last year. But he's only missed 2 other games his entire career. So he's a guy that I think would be, if you're looking for a CB2, if you're looking for a guy that could potentially even drop into a CB1 position, he's only 25 years old. He's got some good coverage skills. He's got some wheels. If you're going to spend, and I think Shane may spend maybe on one guy, kind of like he did last year with Glowinski, gave him the $8 million. I think he might splurge on one guy. I think that would be a guy that could fit quite well into the Giants defense and potentially allow you to move on from Adoree Jackson, not this year, but next year.
I like Byron Murphy. I saw that name too. Byron Murphy. I thought he played well for Arizona. And I think Arizona with their defense, they kind of play similar to what we like to do, which is, the press man defense, tight coverage. They do throw in some zone here and there. I don't mind the Byron Murphy. That's actually a pretty good sleeper. I think though, if Joe's gonna splurge big on one position, I do think it'll be the linebacker position. It's either going to be Tremaine, TJ Edwards. I think those are the two guys. I know David Long, you mentioned him. He's not a bad player. I think though they have no ties, no familiarity with him whatsoever. Where like TJ, you got Brandon Brown, who knows him, has that sense, know who he is as a player. And then obviously with Tremaine, they were there, so they know who Tremaine is. David Long wouldn't be a bad player.
Familiarity is not a good thing.
No, but I think when you listen to what Joe Schoen said, though,
it tells you to overlook
no,
that other teams might see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's definitely a good player. Definitely a guy I think that they would look into. But I know that Joe Schoen mentioned
I got Rob scared from getting banned.
I am. Watching what
now that I think about it.
yeah. David Long, yeah. No, but I mean, he did. I mean, Joe Schoen did say that they want guys that they know, that they know, that they're familiar with, that they can trust. And I think you're gonna look into guys, from Baltimore, from Kansas City, and then guys from Buffalo that they're familiar with, which is why they went ahead and brought in some guys from Buffalo that they're familiar with. So. I just hope it's not McCall Hardman, for crying out loud. Please don't McCall Hardman.
I agree. All right, guys, let's try to get to 100 likes before we leave, because I got to leave here shortly. And I don't want to keep Rob on here forever. But I got to make sure I burn through a lot of these questions, a lot of these comments. And we always do that here, Rob. Let's see here. Indian Spices says, really don't like how talented players get away with criminal behavior. He's right. But that's what it is. That's just the way the world is. The Big Dash says TCU wide receiver is fool's gold. Harsh for real. What's going on, my brother? So what's up, Tim? Jeff wants to know, was it Dom? That's going back to the story of me being beat up by the little person. No, it was not Dom. It was not Dom at all, and we love the Dahmer. We love the king of poppycockers. But Dom was busy that day cooking the cookies in the tree. So that's what it was going on with there. What's going on, my friend? What's going on, my brother? How you doing? What's going on, Tim? Fabian says, what did he do? Punch your knees? Yeah, back then I had bad knees. Lorena Bobbitt, no hard feelings.
That's what she said.
And also you get a double. Let's see here. Gotta skate. Let's see here. Indian Spice says, if DJ doesn't work out and Joe Schoen sticks around, Brian Dable will definitely be gone. If one of them, if it doesn't work, Rob, we talked about it before, and one of them's gone, I think you're right. I think it's going to be Schoen first. But then you have to remember, a new general manager is going to come in and probably want to bring in their own coach.
True.
So I think that's kind of something we're going to look at. The Sports Critic says, I think Jones is back because of Mara, not really Schoen. We talked about that. I personally don't think it was a Mara decision.
And it was Schoen.
I think it was a Schoen decision. Hurst for real says Schoen must draft a quarterback. Vlad the Impaler said it's a Philly thing. It was a Philly thing. Phillies was a rough town. I've told the story before where I got stabbed. I got the scar still. You know what? Maybe I wasn't a very good bouncer. I was thinking about the other day.
Thank God you're making content now.
Thank God. Well, that was a long time ago. But I was thinking about that. I got beat up by a little person. I got shot at. I got stabbed. Maybe it is a Philly thing. And that was all on a Wednesday night. Let's see here. We got Stanley says, hey, Tim, do you think Jalen Hyatt will be the first wide receiver the Giants draft him?
I surely hope not.
I hope not. I'm not a big fan. I mean, I'm not. If he's I should rephrase it. If he's in the 20s, if he's at 25,
I wouldn't even do it at 25.
Is it? You wouldn't even do it at 25?
No. See, for me, Jalen Hyatt, he's got and I talked about this with numerous amount of people, in my Twitter space and stuff like that watch a lot more college ball than I do. He's got really 3 routes. Fades, he runs the fades, he runs the posts. I mean, he's kind of like a 1 or 2 trick pony is really what it is. To me, he's a younger, faster version of what Darius Slayton is, so I'm not a big Jalen Hyatt fan. I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I just don't see that he needs to go someplace where you're going to let it rip and he's going to be able to run underneath it. I think like a team like Kansas City, he would do very, very well in Kansas City. I think he would do well again I would say he would do well in a spot where I could see him going would be the Chargers. With Justin Herbert, I could see him having some success there with Herbert, throwing it down the field. But I don't see it being what the Giants try to do. You
know what I found interesting? I kind of knew where you were going with this. I was letting it run a little bit. So he would be okay with Patrick Mahomes, and he would be okay with Justin Herbert. Okay, so Patrick Mahomes makes 45, 50 million a year. Justin Herbert's going to probably make more than that. We just paid a guy $40 million. 45, I mean, average $40 million over these 3 years. Shouldn't you be okay to run under it with Daniel Jones if he's going to be, if you're talking about Mahomes and Herbert, because you're paying Jones like he's Patrick Mahomes, and we know the Duck's going to get paid. So wouldn't he still be a fit for the Giants?
No. No. And I just don't think he fits. He doesn't fit our system. Like our system.
We don't know what our system's going to be yet, because now we're going to let it rip.
Yeah, but I think you're going to see a little bit more. I think with this year, with the opening up of the offense, I think you're going to see a lot more of kind of like the Kansas City model, which is going to be, middle of the field, some deep routes, but I think it's going to be more middle concepts, different types of, trick plays, end arounds, stuff like that, quick separation type of things. I don't necessarily think it's going to be something where he's going to have like all the time in the pocket for a deep route to develop. I'm not saying that he won't take shots down the field, but I think it's going to be quick stuff, slants, drags, dig routes, zig routes, outs, shoots, swings, wheels, that kind of stuff, and the occasional fade or deep route if you can get one-on-one coverage. But mostly everybody's playing, too high safety, so you can't really get a lot of the deep shots nowadays anyway. I mean, a lot of the big plays this year were absent, because of a lot of teams were playing that, that single or too high safety.
You're right. Let's run through a lot of these, and we're going to get out of here. Jason says, Giants probably drafting a wide receiver at 25. Who do you believe the Giants will either trade up or go into free agency? We just talked about that. James is yelling at Fabian saying, what's the Freeze and Hayes make you think you will win the division when we didn't beat the Eagles or Cowboys last year, and we've tied the Washington teams? Well, next year's, yeah. Jeff says, can we get the cornerback in the draft, the deep draft? I agree with that. I think you can. ECK also says, got to go 3-3 at least in the division next year. Yep, you do. If you don't, you're in a lot of trouble. Keith says, what's wrong with being in it for the likes? I'm not in it for the likes. I'm not. Everyone knows I'm not in it for the likes. If everyone knew this, and I'm not picking on you, Keith, and you got put in timeout, because I always put people in timeout. It makes me laugh. And we all know it's about me, 100%. It's not about anybody else. It's about me. And if you don't like it, it's about me. It's always about me. I'm so needy. You know what? Everyone knows, Rob, I'm not in this for the likes. I'm not in this for the views. Because if I was, I probably wouldn't insult as many people as I do. But I'm just being a wise ass, Keith. It's called sarcasm. That's why we have the button. Let's see here. Jose G says, yeah, don't like Howard. I'd rather draft a linebacker, even a center from Minnesota, or trade up. Let's see here. What does Chris have to say? Chris F says, Meshcom says, attacking the center of the field will seem quite a few times the past season. Yeah, we always do. We got, what does Jedi says? Chiefs traded for Kadarius. I think it's Travis K. Chargers would have other weapons. Hyde isn't going to be the number one we need, who can fit the other teams as the wide receiver. Here's the thing, though. This is what I keep saying, and I keep bringing this up. You are paying someone 40. If you take the 2-year average, Rob, it's 32 million. You are paying him what it would have been to tag him. It really is, because you take 19 plus 45 divided by 2 equals 32. That's what it is. But if you space it out over 3 years and he gets the full term of 3, it's $40 million a year. He should make,
if he hits the incentives, he should make people around him better. And that's not a knock against Daniel Jones, but you know what? You take the big money. You take that cash.
And someone sent me a video, and I don't watch really any content creators because I don't like it clouding my judgment. They sent me a video about some people that were doing a video, and they were basically saying it's time to take the training wheels off Daniel Jones. And I guess he sent it to me because I think these people were they like Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, I can't remember who sent it. I think it was Roldy that sent it to me. I don't remember. But it's right. It's true. It's time to take the training wheels off. It's time to, grip it and rip it and go from there. Yeah. Because if you don't, you paid $40 million on average for a running back who throws occasionally.
Yeah, you got to see what you got in him as far as from a passing perspective. When you get into these late games, especially if you're going to make it into the postseason, your quarterback's not going to make it and win games for you just running the football. You got to get down the field. You got to be able to throw the football. You got to be able to fit into tight windows. So I said it, and you mentioned it earlier. I don't see him having 700-800 yards through the ground. I expect him to have 500-600 yards maybe on the ground. Maybe even I wouldn't even be surprised if it was 400, but I would expect his passing yardage to go up in that sense because he's throwing it more than he's running it. So we'll see what he's able to do with it.
I always love this one from Todd. There is a dude out there that says the DJ haters are now a cult. And I love that because a lot of people that don't like this channel say that it's that we're a cult here. And I always laugh at that because I'm like, because I would be like, well, sweet, man, that makes me the freaking cult leader. All right. Don't worry, we're not drinking any Kool-Aid. That's plus I don't really like Kool-Aid. But you know, we're gonna wrap it up, Rob. We've been on, usually we go a couple hours, but it's a beautiful Sunday. The wife's upstairs doing some stuff. I got a lot of stuff going on here. I appreciate you coming in, dropping by. We do this for every guest that comes in. And the good news is you're not like the Dahmer who we like to refer to as the view killer, because anytime he comes on, the people that watch this channel drop down exponentially. So at least you kept a 120 average. We do this for every person that comes on. We have a build up. We always say to people, you know what? You get the final thought, Rob. You get to sit here and tell us what we're going to be thinking about the rest of the week. You get to pontificate for a moment how wonderful or how uneven this offseason is going to be. You get to tell us that final thought that is going to carry us into free agency. So don't screw it up. Don't say something stupid. We need that thought, Rob. We need that moment. This is your moment. This is your time. Tell us what we need to know going into Monday. And I think the kid crying in the background wrapped it up quite well.
I'll leave it at this. OBJ is coming home.
Really?
OBJ is coming home.
Really? OBJ is coming home. Can I pull the camera up? Hold on. Wait a minute. Can I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know. Oops. Does this move the camera? Hold on. I don't know if I can move my camera because OBJ is coming home. That is interesting. Hold on one second here. Does this move the camera? All right, here we go. Let's see here. I'm going to go up. There we got that. We got so I don't know if I can go up that high. Wait. So sometimes I amuse myself, Rob. Where is it? I have it's all the way in the corner. You can't see it there, but it's all the way in the corner there. And I'm going to point to it. It's the OBJ autograph picture of the catch. So you are telling me the autograph picture of the catch, OBJ, is coming home to the New York Giants. What gives you that thought process?
The thought process behind it is I looked at the teams that were there at the workout there. I don't think that he's going to go back to the Browns organizations. They were there. I don't see him going back there. I know the Cardinals were there, but there's a lot of, uncertainties there with the Cardinals. The Patriots, I don't see him going to the Patriots to go and play with Mac Jones. Ravens, there's a lot of up and down there, especially when it comes to Lamar Jackson. So I don't think that he's going to want to go to a situation like that. The only teams that I see being within the mix that would be able to land his services would be us, the Bills, the 49ers, and the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't see Kansas City having the financial capability of going ahead and bringing him in. Same thing with the Bills. And with the 49ers, there's a lot of mouths over there. You have Debo, you have Brandon Ayuk, and then obviously an unproven commodity in Trey Lance, who's going to get his opportunity, not to mention George Kittle and CMC. So to me, the only real logical sense was the New York Giants. I think they can offer him the contract. They can probably give him about a $10 to $12 million contract a year average, a 3-year average. Go ahead and make it some good incentives with it to where he can make over $20 million. I do think that he's still a very, very good productive player. I think he's exactly what they're looking for. He can create good separation. And ultimately, and the real big caveat is what differentiates the Giants from the Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers, and the Bills, we have Saquon Barkley, and they do not. So I think he wants to come back. I think he wants to be with Saquon Barkley. So I wouldn't be surprised if on day 2 or 3 of free agency, you hear that Odell Beckham is returning to the New York Giants.
And on that note, this is Tim, this is Rob, formerly on Line Big Blue. We're going to close out. Hello, everyone. This is Tim and Rob. Wishing you guys a great Sunday. Have fun. We're out of here. You know what? We may do a video coming up for free agency, but we'll have to wait and see. Everyone have a great Sunday.